and your life.
Hello, my name is Kevin Bateman and this is Live Inside Our Dream. This poem is called Water Heroine. I wanted to kiss you under the water, but how could I breathe? The water wants a sacrifice. It needs suicide to survive, to grow, to live. Is it wrong that it needs emotional soul? All we want is to be happy. Water does not weep, it cries. This poem is called Desire the Pain We Breathe. The last time we met, we left each other covered in blood. A king always poisons his wine. Give me soul of mind. Awaken the bedeviled self. We dream to desire madness. This next poem is called Rhythm. It could be like this, the day we were born. I cannot know what it must be like to forever, ever fear death. You and me are inseparable. We perish in the south. I do not breathe emotion. You are a pink butterfly. And this poem is by William Blake. It's called A Poison Tree. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in tears, night and morning with my tears. And I sunned it with smiles, and with soft, delicate wiles. And I grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld its shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into the garden stole, when the night veiled the pole. In the night glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree. Thank you. And next we have John Mee.
So I'm going to read a poem called Cheb, which has a castle in it. It's about a Czech town, and there's 3 different time periods in it. The middle part, a note says, the material in the second part of this poem has been adapted from the memoir of an English soldier of fortune, the relation of Sydenham Points, 1624 to 1636. So it has an epigraph at the beginning. It's called Cheb. Duke Albrecht von Wallenstein, Imperial General of the 30 Years' War, was once Europe's most powerful man. He was suspected of treachery by Emperor Ferdinand II and was assassinated by Irish officers in his army in what is now the Czech Republic. 1938. Hitler has followed the Wehrmacht to Cheb to visit the scene of the murder of Wallenstein, to promise on the street of crooked houses, never again shall the land of your futures be torn from the Reich. In Pathé newsreels, soldiers in the streets walk on flowers, peasants' girls dance, small boys peek past boots and rifles. A Sudeten woman in an archive photograph gives a raised arm salute. Half her face covered in a white handkerchief, she is crying. Later the Americans crop the photo, remove the friends beside her, an older woman, one glove off, the other in a leather coat, laughing as they salute. 1634. When all things were sure at the castle, up came the supper, a very stately one, with wine and other junkets, snails and pike. Butler played upon them with jests in Gaelic, which none of them understood. Many healths went round, and merrily. This time, said Butler, I will begin. And being a great cup, spoke to Count Kinsky, said it should be the Emperor's health. The Count scorned to pledge, and damned Vienna. Butler threw the cup and drink in his face, and with a stiletto stabbed him. He called in a loud voice, Viva Ferdinando, whereupon stepped in the musketeers at either door, and the nobility were slain, pages and all. Butler and his Irish, with naked swords, reaching the marketplace where Wallenstein lay, struck down 2 gentlemen of his chamber. Wallenstein cried out he would hang the bestia that made such a noise in the night. Walter Devereux, being a strong, lusty man, running at the door with his foot bursted open. Wallenstein reached for his pistols on the wall, but Devereux at his coming cried, Sa, 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 traitor, thou must die. Devereux pierced him with his halberd. He fell to the ground, gave a great groan, as if the devil had gone out of him. Butler presently drew him out by the heels, his head knocking upon every stair, all bloody. 1990. They waved machine guns in my face, at first light, on the border at Cheb. I'm talking about Kafka as they haul me off the train. I won't see Prague. There's a food stall, wasps behind the glass, crawling on the cakes. In the station master's office, I point to my chest. Irish. The old man shakes his head, shows me a print on the wall. Soldiers rushing in like ancient firemen, plumed hats and high boots. All their swords point at the heart of a man who stands at the side. His left hand is raised to show he has nothing up his sleeve. Jabbing his finger, the station master says, Irish, then laughs. Thank you.
And next we have John W. Sexton.
My name is John W. Sexton. I've been accused of poetry. I just found this on the beach. Isn't it beautiful? It's a piece of delf. Somebody ate off of this a long, long time ago. And that's as close as you'll get to an introduction for this poem. Let's put on my extra eyes. In the streets beneath the ocean, in the streets beneath the ocean, on her coral chair, the fishes whisper secrets beneath her seaweed hair. She's got a tumour in her head that's a glowing pearl. She's a strange, strange, strange underwater girl. In the streets beneath the ocean, she combs her seaweed hair. The dolphins bring her children that have drowned down there, and she makes them coats from sailors' skin, gives them gold from sailors' teeth, taken from the sunken ships wrecked upon the reef. I caught her in a dream one time, or maybe she caught me, took me from my sleeping brain into the deepest sea, gave me 7 kisses and 7 cups of wine, promised me that she'd be mine. In the streets beneath the ocean, the moon is never seen. It does its work in secret like an unremembered dream, and all the children dance around, and all the children sing, and the sea queen waits to see what the sea will bring. In the streets beneath the ocean, on her coral chair, the fishes whisper secrets beneath her seaweed hair. She's got a tumour in her head that's a glowing pearl. She's a strange, strange, strange underwater girl. I like writing about women. I write about women a lot. This is another poem about a woman. I write about the injustice meted out to women. This is called The Muse Had Left, but the poets missed her leaving. On the path of gold, her high heels impaled dog turds of every shade of brown, their soft hearts still liquid in their shit. The dogs coughed from the lampposts they were chained to. She hailed a taxi black as a coach horse beetle, and it sent her a cold curve of puddle. Drenched, she took a lone seat in the back, nailed to it by her freezing arse. The driver took her to the edge of town. Now barefoot, she turned her back on the last golden street, and her feet in the wet grass shone silver. Behind her, the city hummed in its noise, the workings of its innards never still. But here she was beyond the city's will, free at last of its never-ending lies. In the dark, frogs began their fart-mouthed hymns. This was a language untainted by thought. She listened, blissful, while the white moon wrought its equalizing light upon her limbs. Bright under moonlight, the river meadow mimed a pure song of both light and shadow. I'm going to finish now with one final poem. Well, it would be a final poem if I'm finishing with it. This is called, well, I was going to read, I've changed my mind. I'm going to read something completely different now to that one. I'm going to read this one. Oh yeah, this is a love poem. This is an anti-love poem. My love came riding. They gave her a hammer. She hammered me flat. She hammered my heart. She hammered me. Sunbeams, her trembling gown. My love came riding on a white horse bleeding, and the grey clouds sliding down. They gave her TB, and she kissed me bright. She kissed me right through with burning light. She kissed me. Sunbeams, her trembling gown. My love came riding on a white horse bleeding, and grey clouds sliding down. They gave her stilettos. She trod on my mind. She trod her dance through endless time. She trod me. Sunbeams, her trembling gown. My love came riding on a white horse bleeding, and grey clouds sliding down. They gave her a glockenspiel made from my bones. Happily, happily she chimed them. Happily. Sunbeams, her trembling gown. My love came riding on a white horse bleeding, and grey clouds sliding down. Goodbye.
And next we have Danielle McLaughlin.
I'm going to read a very short story called Beached. When the waters receded, I found a fish in the grass, all dead and glassy-eyed. I picked it up and it came to life, shot right out of my hand. I gave it a name, your name actually, then watched it thrash and wriggle at my feet until the thrashing and wriggling stopped. Why am I telling you this? Because if you hadn't left, you could have worked the wire clippers underwater. Those damn useless clippers we bought at Calden's yard, and the calf wouldn't have died. It wouldn't have been swept down river past the reservoir to end up impaled on the gates of the weir. And yes, I do know it is 4 a.m. Such a curious hour in the fields, the animals sleeping, the black lines of ditches like driftwood from some other flood, a flotsam of other older hearts. I kept it, that fish with your name, pickled in a mix of lavender water and formaldehyde. I display it on the dresser in the kitchen where anybody who visits can see it, though nobody visits, not even that man from the gun club who used to be so friendly. It is not my fault that she has woken. Tell her there will be many nights like this. Your former lovers calling from wet fields, mouthing like fish their silent obscenities as they wait for the next flood. Thank you.
And next we have Dario
Never say it.
Cannizzaro. Did I get it right?
Hi. Yeah, the name is good. Hi. So this is a short story. It's called The Name of the Rose, and it is biographical in nature, if you want. I was 15. It was 1997. I started writing poetry, reading unknown authors, listening to grunge music. My high school was in a city near Napoli, called Pozzuoli. The school was spread in 2 buildings, and both of them were not built to host a school. One was a former fire station, and the other was a residential building modified to be a school. There were no emergency exits. There were cement columns in the middle of the classrooms, balconies like houses. My classroom was plastered with tiles, covering one entire wall, the last enduring memories of a kitchen of times past. I would go out of the balcony to smoke a cigarette during breaks, while teachers rushed from one class to the other. The balcony opened on the backyard of the building, onto an ancient Roman temple. The temple was as tall as a 3-story building, and still incredibly well preserved, even though it was half masked by the green of the vegetation that was eating it. I would light up a cigarette and look at the temple. Think of the people that passed by there, think that in any other country that temple would have visitors, would be guarded, walled and respected. I would inhale the violet smoke, and as the cigarette reached its end, I would throw it on the ground near the temple in a burning arch, because that behavior was normal for me and the people around me at that particular point in life. During gym class, we would go and play football exactly where the temple was, using the fallen down opening as one of the goals. We would sweat in the warm southern European climate and come back to our class stinking of burnt skin, blood, grass and sweat, because there were no showers. After school, we would go out in the little park that once was in front of the building. We would stop by the salumeria and buy prosciutto and cheese paninis while waiting for the school bus. The school bus was a white van stripped of normal seats, with 3 long benches just to stuff more kids in. The days in school were boring. The ideas we were studying felt stale. So I would sit in the back of the class, hiding my Ungaretti, Yeats or Thomas in whatever book we were supposed to have in front of us. I would read Hume and Locke while the professor was reading Parmenides from the book. The system was old and smelled like death. That year, I would often skip class. Sometimes I would join other people from other classes who skipped class as well. If it were summertime, we would go to the beach. You could go to the beach from March till October, that's how nice the weather was. We would take off our clothes, leave them under our school bags and swim in our underwear. The sun would dry ourselves up in a short while. We would then eat a slice of pizza and then come back home. Our moms would ask, "Why are you so tanned?" I'm sitting near the window, Mom. Possibly, if all of our mothers saw us all together, they would have imagined a classroom which was made up entirely of windows, almost a science experiment with kids running like insects inside of it, hiding from the flesh-devouring sun. During winter time, we would go to the city, Napoli. We would bowl or play video games. We would visit the first fast food restaurants, McDonald's, Burger Kings and such were a novelty back then, trying to hook up with teenage girls, trying to understand for the first time love in our lives. But my favorite time were when it was only me, or me and my close friends. We would go to the city center of Pozzuoli. and hide in a dark alley. Inside the alley, there was a tattoo joint, a hearing aid shop, and a very small bookshop called El Nome della Rosa, after Umberto Eco's book. The owner, Gino, would entertain his guests with delightful comments about books, poetry, literature. It wasn't long before we started spending our mornings there, talking with Gino and drinking espresso, while watching the whirlwind of customers. Lost souls on the lookout for human connections. Writers, poets, mothers, sons, fishermen, shop owners, unemployed hippies. The whole humanity passed in the bookshop. 20 to 30 square meters of enlightened soil, much like the sacred ground of a secret church. We would pass our time speculating about the weight of the soul, the meaning of life, the search for happiness, the pursuit of love. It was a full-on school of philosophy. I would come back to my regular school, in my kitchen-tile classroom, with my cigarettes, my Roman temple, and I would recite poems from Catullo that I discussed the day earlier at the library. I would introduce bundle theory to the classroom before our philosophy teacher would explain it, just because it was in one of the books we discussed at the library. I didn't pass that year, for other reasons than my grades. One being that you actually needed to be in the classroom for a certain amount of days, and I wasn't there, too busy understanding life. I didn't pass that school year, but I did pass a great life here. The library eventually vanished. You cannot have a place like this for long, because it defies logic. It is a safe haven that sticks out like a sore thumb, a final monument against misery and materialism. It was a gift to live during that time, to live while El Nome della Rosa lived, and in that sunbathed little coastal town, discussing life, the universe, and everything else, while Berlusconi was crafting the next generation of voters. And I cherish the time I had. And while I understand the precious moments that I've lived, I look around and search for the bliss that I'm living now, the gift from my time, that which I don't know yet, but I'll cherish in 20 years. Thank you.
Next we have Marie Gethins.
I'm going to read 3 short stories or flash fictions. This is Eating My Words. You said my name tasted sweet, like a sun-warmed peach in July. I loved watching you articulate the syllables, savoring your expression. Other words triggered different tastes inside your mouth. I learned which to avoid in the delicate buffet of our conversation. You waited after my lecture on alabaster and Greek vases, invited me for a coffee. Early on, I'd picked you out from the crowd. While others took notes or dozed, you seemed mesmerized. At the cafe, you leaned across the table, pushed me to talk. I thought my research fascinated you, but words were what you craved. Later, as we lay spent in damp sheets, you revealed your synesthesia, repeating my name in a whisper. You coaxed me to speak, asking for more details and terms. I told you about handle designs on Lutrophoros vases, how they were used for immersion rituals, buried in tombs of the unmarried. You stared at the ceiling, listened, and licked your lips. 3 months on, you tired of ancient Greece. Spending hours in the university library, I assembled new verbiage to tempt you. Kush, Ming, Kadoan. I missed deadlines, gave excuses to friends, yet you remained unsatisfied. Last week, I cut across campus. Through a window, I saw you in a botany lecture. The screen title in blue bold, Medieval Physic Gardens. Words and pictures flashed, elecampane, myrtle, vervain, yarrow. From the front row, you watched Delphine Laurent form the words. Mouth parted, eyes bright, the look I thought you reserved for me. I found you in the cafe with Delphine this afternoon. 2 smiles over latte froth, a textbook of plant illustrations open between the cups. You stuttered an excuse that I brushed away. Opening my bag, I pulled out a special list and enunciated each entry. Steadfast, loyal, faithful, relationship, commitment, promise. You grimaced, distaste rising in your mouth. I continued as moisture beads formed on your face, your skin growing pale. Each taste noted beside the word I relished, creating the combination. Garlic, chili, anise, Genetian, chalk, soil. You had told me how each bad flavor lingered for days, created acid that scalded your throat. Halfway through, you dashed for the toilet, hand over your mouth. You knocked a chair, jarred the table. Latte splashes disfigured intricate petals and roots. I rolled up my list. You'll need this. I pressed the paper scroll into Delphine's palm and squeezed her shoulder. Walking past the toilet, I shouted, "Love!" I heard you heave. This is Mammoth Task. A fuzzy trunk reached across Dr. Elizabeth Naylor's shoulder and ruffled her hair. "Good job you didn't do that when CNN was here." She gave the truck a pat. "This cut and color set me back over $200. Naylor rummaged through a drawer, pulled out a hairbrush. The young mammoth trumpeted. "Okay, Binky, as a treat." After a few brush strokes, Binky gave a low rumble, eyes closing as he dozed. She continued to smooth his long hair, working her way to the coarse undercoat. An artificial strawberry smell drifted up, traces from the mammoth's earlier shampooing. She rubbed his rough skin, assessed the developing musculature. She thought he had done well in his first TV appearance. Dr. Naylor returned to her desk, picked up the media prep sheet. She had perfected sound bites for public consumption on her team's expertise and passion. Of the 6 centers granted access to cells with live DNA, her lab had the most successful cloning program. Other researchers made caustic comments on the dangers of accelerated growth techniques. At conferences, she heard their jealous whispers about her funding, questioning the source. "Technology transfer," she said, imagining ghostly competitors' furrowed brows. She opened a cardboard tube and unrolled A1-size sheets. Dr. Naylor smiled, surveying the plans for the new facility and young mammoth petting zoo. On another page, she reviewed the abattoir design. Discreet, screened by a hillock crowned with poplars. She smoothed the Gourmet Mammoth Products logo, weighing down a curling corner with the brush. Dreaming, Binky murmured. This is Blood Ties. I watched the red river flow down my arm and looked for boats. Lips tight, chest stilled, I wait for miniature clipper ships to unfurl their sails. How many winter nights did we sit side by side, a length of cord each? A sailing knot book from the library propped on our kitchen table. We worked the patterns, near enough to touch, but we never did. My tiny fingers often swifter, defter than your monster-sized hands. Steve Dorr, cat's paw, overhand, sailor, lark's head. The hitches, timber, blackwall, osel, clove. We made the double carrack bend together, joining our pieces of twine into a single clutch. You mounted your great-grandfather's carpentry tools in a shadow box and fed me tales of his life on the sea. The albatross that led them out of the icebergs to safety, the other sailor that shot it with a crossbow. At school, I learned that ancient mariner belonged to Coleridge, not our family legacy. With teenage spite, I showed you the rhyme, watched your eyes shift to another time and place. A summer of doldrums passed between us. I found an aged envelope taped to your bedroom drawer's underside. I plundered the bounty, swallowed questions, and adopted the silence you'd kept for more than a decade. Through our mute nights, you nodded alone, while I filled in my lifeline gaps. A family home near a forest, newsprint about the missing child, the tiny bracelet, its charm engraved with a distant name. One dawn, I placed them beside your coffee mug, a treasure trail leading me away from you. The fishermen found you swaying in a boathouse by the docks, a thick black rope. 6 loops to make a collar knot that cinched tight when you stepped off the stool, a technique you didn't share with me. DNA delivered my new history and a family full of embraces that I can't return. Trees cluster around their house, branches rasp against windows. No seagull chorus or salt air tang. With a steak knife in the locked bathroom, I cry at the first slice, wait for the gush, and hope somehow it will loop me to you, sending us both upstream. Thank you.
And Kevin Doyle?
I'm going to read a short story, Round Black's Grains. It's about a young man I knew who died a number of years ago. at a young age. At the wake, we talked about the time Justin nearly died in the glen trying to save the San Martins. Really, what was he thinking? The colony of birds had been living in the urban wilderness for as long as anyone could remember. Their nests long tunnels burrowed into the sandy deposits, left behind when the glaciers receded. A consortium, Skellig Developments, planned to build houses beside the ancient abode, but had discovered that the birds enjoyed protection under some obscure bylaw. They hatched a plan, a compromise it was called, to build the San Martins a new home, a short distance from where they had always lived. These units, concrete towers bristling with hollow plastic pipes, were superior to sand dunes apparently, studies had showed. They didn't suffer from the damp, they were durable, and they could even be painted to merge in with the surrounding terrain. The city council was thrilled, finding itself marred in an ethical dilemma of stupendous proportions. Could progress run roughshod over these ancient dwellers? They finally saw a way out. Voting to lift the injunction, they accepted the generous offer from Skellig, and a few days later the new towers were hauled into position. That night, a strange contraption also appeared, blocking access to the site. It had 3 spindly legs intersecting 4 meters above the ground. Hanging from the apex of the structure was a tiny capsule, not unlike a chaeroplane seat. Sitting in this was Justin. A Garda explained. He had seen the structure before, a tripod it was called, at an anti-Shell oil protest in Mayo. It was designed to interdict the movement of ground vehicles along narrow lanes and roadways. It couldn't easily be moved. In fact, assistance would have to be summoned. This arrived shortly. From a van that said Garda Specialist Unit, 3 police officers dressed in black alighted and filmed the scene. Their peaked caps read GSU, and they had with them a dune buggy that they went around in for a while, mostly up and down the narrow track obstructed by the tripod. They examined the obstacle, took pictures with telescopic lens, and rattled its spindly legs. They ascertained through a combination of measurements and stress tests that Justin's abode was structurally sound. A cherry picker was sent for and duly arrived. Rented, it later emerged, from a subsidiary of Skellig's called Skellig Equipment. We jeered and sang songs, held away as we were at a distance from the standoff by a robust chain-link fence. The strange thing was the San Martins. We could see them too in the distance. In the beginning they had fluttered about in squalls. There was quite a population of them, but as the day progressed, as the onlooking crowd grew in size, the colony took up a stationary position on the cliff face and watched in silence. The Garda unit were serious men. 2 went into the cherry picker cabin, while a 3rd videoed proceedings. The picker rose like a serpent's head and drew level with the capsule. Some time was spent talking to Justin, reasoning with him, but apparently, we read this later in the newspaper, the one that described us as rent-a-mob, that he couldn't be reasoned with. So eventually battle was joined and pepper spray was used. It was a sight, seeing the tripod rock from side to side, Justin swinging wildly in the capsule. He was finally extricated and brought down, escorted to a position near the building huts and offered tea. He was informed that he wouldn't be arrested. Apparently Skellig Developments had endured enough adverse publicity. Divested of its human inhabitant, a bulldozer moved forward and smashed the tripod into the ground. Earth movers followed quickly, trundling up the narrow road to the dunes. We saw a JCB's claw rise up into the air and swipe wildly at the tallest dune. The San Martins scattered into the air as a wedge of sand separated from the cliff face and fell down. In the hiatus that followed, knowing that our cause was lost, Justin broke free again. Dodging Gardaí and a variety of Skellig goons, he ran forward and dived into a collapsing heap of sand. It seemed to take forever before it was understood what had happened. Gardaí and Skellig employees ran to help. Anger followed panic. Shouts of "madman" and "who does he think he is" could be heard. The JCB driver was livid and the first to claw at the mound. There were fears of another collapse. but that stopped nobody. Within a few minutes, Justin's head of hair was located, a vent space to his mouth was cleared next, and after that his shoulders were released. It was only a matter of time then. They excavated quickly, uncovering a figure contorted around his own cupped hands. He shouted, spluttering the words as they pulled him to safety. "Gentle, please, gentle, mind the birds." There's a photo of the moment. It's on indie media apparently. A collection of men in orange high-vis vests and white helmets are gathered around Justin. In his lap, nestled for protection, is a collection of San Martin chicks. The fledglings had withdrawn their heads so far into their bodies that their necks had vanished. They looked scared, their eyes only round black brains.
And give you John. We're finishing up.
Are we gonna
That's it. So we're all just going to give it a
sequential bow.
yes. And we have John Sexton.
Yeah, bring it over here.
over.
Oh, yes.
Over there,
Hello, hello. The sea. Just one thing to say goodbye. Look how marvellous the sea is. It takes our shit and it sends it back to us. You're right, sea, to send back this shit. Whoa!
Danielle McLaughlin. Dario
Cannizzaro.
Where you get
It's a tricky one, even for me.
Kevin Doyle. And then we're going to swip the camera around. Gary, you can have me here?
Yep.
Oh, damn it, you're 700 euros phone.
Don't worry.
Oh, I have to bow as well.
Yeah, you have to. Kevin Bateman. Hello from California.
Right, do you want to flip this around? No, the other, no, the other way. Yeah. Is that alright?
Yep.
No, the other, we flip it, so basically.
How do you want to do it?
Bring it in.
Oh, yeah, I understand now.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Move
flip
it.
it around. Yeah, 1 second.
Like this. Right?
No, not really, no.
I don't understand then.
Right, I'm gonna flip it this way. I'm gonna like that. So that's gonna record with the better camera in the front.
Like this.
Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that tight enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
1 second.
Take a picture of us.
Wait again.
Can you?
We're still recording. We're still recording.
It's still happening.
It's still live. Still live. So we all get around here. Can you show us what? Sorry. Can you show us where we are standing? We're all standing here.
You gave the phone